how important is it for a writer to know their own personal story? Not the story they're writing, but who they are, their own life's journey, conflict in their own
If you're
lives?
talking for a writer, I would think it's not that important.
No?
No, it's not. I know it might be surprising to hear that, but
Why not?
to me it's not that important. The thing you should be aware of is human dynamics. You know, psychology, emotions, character relationships, that you should be well versed in. Now, lucky is the writer who has had an amazing life experience and had all those experiences that he can write about. That makes it easier. But it's not necessary. If you're a highly curious person, I mean, you know, you could be a great writer who's had a very mediocre life. You know, I mean, I'm not a believer of the Hemingway thing about, you know, if you want to write about adventure, you gotta go and be adventurous and stuff. I mean, maybe there's some truth to it, but I think it really depends on your mind and your curiosity, you know. And I think we can all find, you know, it's all about your imagination. If you're highly imaginative, you can write about anything, whether you experience it or not. You know, I mean, if you write science fiction, you know, George Lucas didn't experience going on a ship in order to be able to write about it, right? Or James Cameron, you know, do you think all the stuff about Pandora and Avatar that he experienced that in his own life? No, it's all imagination, right? So that's what you need. You need to know. You need to have high imagination, obviously, but then you need to be well versed in character relationships. So, yes, if you've had experience with character relationships, that's great, and character conflicts. But if you haven't, you can always learn it. And if you're highly curious, you know, I mean, I have a psychology degree, so if I wasn't a writer, I'd be a psychologist, because that's what fascinates me. I'm fascinated by human interactions, human psychology, and especially the reason why people do what they do, which is what characters do in stories. So really, you know, that works for me. But my life story, as much as I consider it very unique and different from most people's life stories, I don't have a desire to write about it. So it doesn't affect me at all in that sense.
So then someone shouldn't totally, let me just rephrase that.
I think I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
I mean, because usually, and it's different for, I think it might be different for actors, it might be different for, you know, because that's usually what you're taught. You know, you have to use your kind of like sense memory and that kind of thing. But for writers, but again, I don't think there's a yes or a no. For me, I don't think it's important. Like, it doesn't have to be. For others, it might be. And I'm aware that if it did happen to you, then, and you want to write about it, then of course that makes it easier, because it happens to you, you'll be a lot more realistic. But, you know.
Well, you talked about today that when you gave your class, that many people noted that they wanted to write their own story.
Yeah,
which I think
is fascinating. A lot of people are writing that. Yeah, a lot of people. Well, that's because they think that their life stories are interesting. Everybody thinks their life story.
Right.
I mean, everybody thinks they're the hero of their own story, and there's a little truth to it. But I gotta say, I mean, if I'm talking from experience and from hearing people's life stories that they want to write as movies, I would say about 90% of them are not that interesting. They just, the writers themselves think it's interesting. I don't think it is interesting, and audiences don't think it's interesting. So they gotta learn that. That's why feedback comes in. If the feedback is like, okay, well, you know, I mean, I always bring out Hitchcock's quote about, you know, drama is real life with all the boring parts cut out. So a lot of people feel that just because they've had a few interesting experiences, maybe unique, that it warrants them to making a movie out of it. They may be right, but a lot of times they're not.
Well, I found that some people who have had incredibly interesting, albeit hard lives, actually don't think they're that interesting. And the reverse is actually
yeah.
The people that have had, and this person, and it's not actually that exciting, but then I've talked to several people
that's true,
that their lives have been very difficult and challenging, and they don't really see it as anything interesting.
Right. Well,
and I'm always encouraging
that's
them.
Where that's where feedback comes in.
And they're like,
because,
that's
because
boring.
If they hear everybody telling them, then eventually they'll believe it.
Right.
So get feedback.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.